I really hate to admit it, but I'm one of those late adopters of the show Tugs. Like, I've known about it for as long as I've been on the internet, but just never took the time to actually get around to watching it. I guess from the outsider perspective that I had of only knowing Thomas and Friends, it just kinda looked weird and not like something I would be into. You know, I'm a train guy, not a boat guy. However, I was aware that the shows basically shared a fan base. Most fans of Thomas and Friends were fans of Tugs, and after finally just breaking, I just sat down and binged through the whole show. Much to my surprise, all 13 episodes that I could find, I actually ended up really enjoying. Almost every character in the show is unique, and the craftsmanship of the models and sets is something to behold. It very much carries the same vibe and almost look that classic Thomas did, apparently being filmed in the same room as season 5, but also in the subject of its stories and execution of them. There's a noticeably more mature tone than what you would originally expect. Not really a darker one, but a significantly more serious one. The amount of perilous situations and potential deaths that are involved in Tugs are numerous, to say the least, but nothing bad or serious really ever ends up happening to the Tugs, despite how this may look. And you really have to appreciate that all of this is done with models. You definitely don't see special effects or situations like this necessarily in Thomas. For example, the episode you're looking at now is called Munitions, which is episode 5, where basically this guy named Blue Nose, who you hope gets blown up but never does, ends up starting a munitions fire on the dock and puts basically everybody's lives at risk. That's not really something you would see in Thomas and Friends. There also is the relationship between the Starfleet and the Z-Stacks, which in a way I guess you could relate to the Steamies versus Diesels trope, seeing as both sides think they're better than the other and are trying to outcompete the other. And yeah, I guess the dynamics are similar. The Star Tugs and Z-Stacks compete for contracts, more for their bosses, and this is all taking place during the midst of the Great Depression. It's a little more than, oh, I'm better than you in Tugs. After completing what I could find of the series and realizing that it was only 13 episodes long, I wanted to figure out why the series stopped here and so abruptly. Even with myself being a Thomas fan and this being a long shot from that, I still find the characters, the show, and everything that happens in it to be interesting. That, and I know I'm not alone in feeling that way. Being recorded in 1986 and then first shown in 1989, Tugs was coming up at around the same time as the original Thomas and Friends episodes were. In no way would I argue that Tugs is better than Thomas. However, I do think it's strange that a show so similar to Thomas and that has such a fan base behind it would end up stopping where it did, again so abruptly. With all that in mind, I set out to try to figure out what I could about why Tugs was cancelled. Tugs originally was made to be a sister series to Thomas and Friends, and served well in that purpose until Clearwater Features, the show's production company, would go bankrupt. The show was also created by two directors of Thomas and Friends, David Mitton and Robert D. Cardona, and after the cancellation of the show, many of the models and sets were reused and recycled, mostly for background props in Thomas. Tugs originally aired on ITV in the UK and was meant to air on children's BBC, but didn't, as the show would end up getting cancelled. There were even plans to show the series in the United States in 1992, and several US cuts of the episodes would be released for test audiences in the United States. These mostly contained shortened versions of the episodes, however only one of such tapes has ever been located. The Tugs were even supposed to appear in Thomas and the Magic Railroad, however it was never specified if the models would have been faceless or modified. 96 scripts and various new characters were created for upcoming episodes, and at the time the series was cancelled, such was enough for 7 more series. That is, assuming that the future seasons would have consisted of around the same amount of episodes. For several years it would remain unsure what happened to the original models. However, once the models had been located, the Star Tugs Trust Company was formed, which would be dedicated to preserving the models, and oftentimes they show them off at exhibitions, or at least at a time did, as through that touring several props would receive minimal damage. This would consist of 10 Cents' Happy Face mask now featuring several chips and dent marks, and the sticker reading C on Blue Nose's model, which was converted into Sea Rogue, has been completely lost, and the paint that they used to fix this has been scratched. Even in the show's technicalities, there lies a couple of problems. For example, Big Mickey, who was a character originally debuted in Tugs, and was then later used in Thomas, despite the shows likely taking place in separate universes, even retaining the same name. However, it was technically illegal for Hit Entertainment and Mattel to be using him as a character, as he was already copyrighted, and copyright is still held to this day by the Screen Actors Guild. It would take 3 years to film these amazing 13 episodes, and it really is a shame that after that, the best that we got really just comes down to re-assetting the models. If the show would have kept up and not been cancelled, I can't help but wonder if it still would be airing today. Or if Mattel would purchase and ruin it too and make a shitty animated remake about it, and honestly at that rate, I'm kinda happy that it ended when it did. I just wish we were able to get at least a little bit more out of this original series. Just as I said before, it really is sad that it took me so long to actually get into Tugs. I still would argue that it's nowhere even close to being as good as Thomas and Friends, and while it's made to be a sister series and story to Thomas and Friends, you have to remember that it's not made to actually represent or be the same thing as that. They may look similar, but Tugs isn't made to have any relation to Thomas. To put the two side by side I feel is almost unfair, and even I, before I actually watched Tugs, just chopped it up to probably being some one-off that really would have nothing for me to enjoy. Truth be told, I couldn't have been more wrong. While definitely being different from what I would expect from such a media, I wouldn't classify that as a bad thing. Like I said, Tugs was kinda made to be standalone-ish, and while technically it's a sister series to Thomas, it shouldn't be held in the same light or regard as it. Thomas kinda went one direction and Tugs went the other, but no matter how you choose to look at it, the craftsmanship and creativity and attention to detail that would go into making this series really deserves more credit, and it's a shame that it would only get 13 episodes to show this. I would recommend any classic Thomas and Friends fan to watch Tugs. However, when you do it, just remember one thing. It may be different from what we're used to, but regardless of that, still manages to capture that beauty that the original classic Thomas and Friends series would give us, albeit in its own unique and very creative way. Thank you guys for watching.